About to meet one of the most abundant fruits and berries around here in the Calgary, Alberta area. One that grows from coast to coast all across North America. And I think probably one of the most underutilized wild fruits. All right, so this is the chokecherry, and we have just found an abundant tree. Like I say, I see this everywhere now. I've been, year after year, just kind of slowly working my way into beginning to become aware of what's around us in our local environment, what I call our foodscape, right? As we get out into the natural environment, you can learn that so many of these plants have either a medicinal properties or they're edible, they're nutritious. And this one here, I've been aware of, but really it's this year that I'm actually really deeply getting into it. And I'm shocked at the abundance of them and how 99% of people just ignore them. I've chatted with a lot of you guys on Facebook and social media. Maybe you grew up picking them, that your grandmother, your mother has a recipe using them, but it's been a while. So I hope this is inspiration for you guys to get out. It's a highly abundant, but I think very underutilized fruit. And I get it. It's chokecherry. A name like that. Another name for it is bitterberry. It does have a bitter taste, and it's also got the sensation of astringency. So if you've ever eaten like a unripe persimmon and it kind of turns your mouth funny and it dries it out, you get a little bit of that sensation with these cherries. But I think it's worth it. The more that I come out here and enjoy them, the less that sensation bothers me, and I can really get into the flavor. Plus, I'll show you how to work with some of the cherries in a way, taking them home to your kitchen, that you can remove that, take out the bitterness and make them more enjoyable, more palatable. But here we are. Our task right now is to harvest these. And as far as a berry goes, a fruit out in wild, the abundance of them, but they're very quick and easy to pick. Not all trees are going to be this full. I mean, this is kind of bending at the branches because it is so full. You want to have a plastic bag or a bucket that you can easily collect in. A basket would work, but as you can see, these guys are, smaller than a marble, so you don't want a basket where you could lose some of these cherries. The cherries, they do vary in size. These are a nice large size. Sometimes they are quite a bit smaller, but we've got some nice big ones here. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling them into my bucket. And very simply, if you can, it's ideal if you could have one with a strap. I didn't really come that prepared for that today. So what I do is I just kind of dangle it over. And let me show you really quickly first that those cherries, they come off on a little kind of stamen like that there. And all we need to do is just strip that into the bucket. So I'll put my bucket right below it. Just pull those straight down to angle the bucket, cherries into it. Cha-ching! It's like wild fruit at nature's casino. Here we are, dropping into the bucket. You want to obviously try not to get leaves. You don't want to be stripping the leaves off the tree, but the leaves, just like parts of the bark as well as the seeds, actually contains cyanide-like compound, which is poisonous. Leaves we can get rid of. We can pick those off if they happen to get in there. The seeds, very easy to avoid. We just don't eat those, right? So if you're out and you're picking, you're munching on these, you're just going to enjoy the fruit, spit out the seed. Plus two, when we get into the kitchen, cooking deactivates that compound. So there's no risk once we cook and or dry them. We're not going to have to worry about that prussic acid, cyanic acid that will become deactivated. Not an issue, but it is present in the leaves as well, so we don't want to go there. Plus, it is the fruit we're after. And then those fruits are just dropping in at a great pace. So quick and easy to pick. Next step will be processing them, which does take a little bit of time. This was one of the most commonly used berries by the Native Americans. You can see by the abundance, it was just so obvious and abundantly there for them, but they had a lot of uses for them. So they would dry them, pound them into cakes, you know, seed, fruit and all, and then dry it into cakes. That would be traded actually amongst tribes. They all really revered these, and it was a valuable of trade. If another tribe was in an area where these didn't grow, then exchange would be made for something else. It was also one of the fruits that was used in the pemmican, so mixing it with the meat and the fat. And this is one of the berries that was used for the pemmican in that process. Of course, today we can make wine, we can make juices, jams, jellies, all kinds of wonderful things. So we'll explore that in the kitchen. All right, here we are. I just wanted to show you a different tree. This one's in the forest. It's a younger tree. The fruits are a little bit smaller and obviously not as abundant, not so much of them. However, still really easy picking, very accessible, and that same delicious fruit. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some of these for the basket. Here we are at yet again another different variation of the chokecherry. You know, definitely the parks around in Kananaskis, nature, you'll find the chokecherries. This one here, it's called the Schubert chokecherry, and landscapers love them. I mean, since my eyes have been, you know, open to recognizing this plant, I now see it everywhere. You're driving down the road, it's in neighborhoods. Even if you don't even go into a park where there's maybe questioning, should you be harvesting the berries? I bet you down your street, someone has one of these trees, a Schubert chokecherry, and they are abundant. The berries are big and very easy to harvest, and I almost guarantee you that whoever's tree it is that you find, you can go knock on their door and ask them if you can pick them, and they're probably more than happy to let you do so. Now, just a note, you do want to get these berries as ripe as possible. On the Schubert chokecherries, they actually start out green, then they go a red, and it's really this dark, almost like a black purple that you want them to go. And you can even let them go slightly beyond ripe. They'll even start to begin to dry on the tree. Perfectly to pick at that stage. And in fact, the more ripe they are, the less of that bitter quality, less of that astringency that you'll be getting. So the riper the better. And I mean, I pick these cherries year round. Sometimes they do even just dry right on the tree, and you're walking along the path and you got a little trail snack. You can nibble them as you hike. So all right, now that we got our harvest back at the house and into the kitchen, we can make any number of things. At the very least, you're going to want to dry them. Simply just spread out onto a baking tray or onto a dehydrator sheet if that's what you have. Baking tray I would then put out into the sun and let them sun dry, or I put them very low in the oven, and they'll see. They'll just dry up, shrivel up, get fairly firm, and those could be then ground to a powder, added to things as the natives used to do. You can make your own pemmican if you got a recipe for that. Or you can rehydrate them, soak them at a later point, and use them that way. So that's one option there. Other thing here we're going to do is we're actually going to prepare a fruit leather as well as a juice. And when we cook them into a juice, then we can go a number of different angles as well. So first thing we want to do is we want to take our berries and just give them a little bit of a rinse. And as I add the water, if there are bits of leaves or some of the stem or stalk that's still remaining there, that'll all float to the surface and we can easily pick it out. Just enough water to cover, and we begin to pick out, oh, there's even a little bug in there. You can just kind of skim off the surface that little bit of debris. Give it a shake. It's that easy. And then we drain that off. All right, for making a juice, we want to take our berries, put them into a pan, and we're going to cover with water, just enough to cover, and then we're going to bring that to a boil, down on a simmer, lid on, lid off, doesn't matter, and we'll let that cook for at least an hour. But I know my friend Denis, when he does a lot of his berries, he'll do them several hours, even to overnight, and that really pulls out all the flavor. So into a pan, cover with water, and then turn that heat on. And if you want to make a fruit leather, we're going to take a blender, good high-speed one. That could be your Vitamix. I've got a little magic bullet here. We're going to put our cherries in there, and we're going to add a little bit of water to help it blend. If we just put them in dry, it's not going to work quite as well. So that little bit extra moisture helps with the blending. All right, it's gonna get noisy. We're gonna blend this up. This is seeds and all that are gonna get ground up, and we're gonna try and grind it as best as we can to make those seed fragments as small as possible. A dehydrator sheet. You take your pureed fruit, stone and all. One thing you could do at this stage is you could pass it through a fine mesh strainer just to help remove as much of that pit as possible. However, the pit, although it's a bit of a textural thing, does increase the protein content, so there's a little bit more nutrition in there, and I think that was a vital part of how the natives were doing it. So I want to spread that as nice and thin as we can, and then we're going to pop this in the dehydrator and create a fruit leather. Okay, here's some finished fruit leather. Obviously, once you put it in the dryer, you're going to let one side, that top layer, begin to dry. And then once it is, it's to be a point where you can actually take it off that sheet and it gets flipped around, peel that sheet back, and now you've got the other side and layer exposed. You can do it on a baking sheet you know, maybe on parchment, but I really like the Excalibur dehydrator for this and those sheets. Now you can see those little bits of pits fragments there. We could take this, break it apart, try and powder it even more. Again, use it as a fruit powder, throw it into our smoothies, make our pemmican, whatever it is, or becomes a great trail snack. And it's got those deep purple pigments, these cherries, lots of nutrition in them, including the protein. And these antioxidants, these anthocyanins, that purple pigment of which this is very deeply pigmented. Because we only got as fine of a ground as we could, and imagine back in the day, natives like, you know, stone ground, you know, kind of hammering it, mashing it, it wouldn't have been very smooth. Even with the blender, it's not that smooth either. So as you're kind of chewing on this, you can just kind of let it dissolve, that fruit, suck the fruit off, and you'll have these little tiny pit fragments you can spit, or you can just crunch them and eat them too. And again, it's that combination of cherry fruit flavor with like an almond amaretto type flavor along with it. So it's quite nice that way. That's our fruit leather. All right, when creating the juice, we put it into a saucepan, covered with enough water, turned it on high. Once it came to a boil, turn that down, let it simmer for an hour to several hours. And what you get is now this wonderfully deep, dark purple, almost pink like juice. Now, these cherries, most of all that flavor is now into our water, into the liquid there. So that's what we want to strain off. Typically what I'll do sometimes even while it is cooking, I'll take a little masher and just break them up even more. However, a good long decoction, like a tea, right? It really pulls out all the properties out of the cherries. And now we just need to do is strain that out so we'll have a nice pure cherry juice. Okay, now with our cherry juice, have a taste. Enjoy as is. Some people prefer it sweetened a little bit. That can be with some maple syrup, with some honey. Depending on how much you've made, you'll be able to enjoy that all fresh, turn it into popsicles, whatever it is. Or you can then store it away in the freezer. You can can it. As well as, at this stage now, we could turn that into a jelly. We could make a jam with it by adding pectin or some other way to thicken it. We can also make a syrup by sweetening it. I have another video on how to make those types of concoctions, jams, syrups. I did it with Saskatoon berries. Same principle would apply here. And the other thing you can do is you actually can turn this into a mead or a wine, right? So you've got this base of flavor. Now add your sugar. If it's a mead, you're going to add honey and let that ferment, or a sugar and turn it into a wine. So lots you can do with this abundant berry. It's all freely available. You just need to know what it is, what it looks like, where to find it. Spend just a moment harvesting it. It's a great way to get outside, to connect with nature, to gather your own food and medicine, bring it back to the kitchen, and now you've got a number of ways that you can turn it into dried fruits, fruit leather, juices, jams, jellies, or wines. The chokecherry is a wonderful, abundant wild food out there for you to harvest. Enjoy. Hope you enjoyed that video. I want to invite you to share this out. Share with your friends and family. This is valuable knowledge and information that can change your life, literally. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel because we have more and more videos coming out all the time. Explore the past ones. Our concept is sharing with you what we like to call easy upgrades, things you can apply to your everyday. Change nothing about what you're doing, but just begin to add in some of these easy things that will make a difference in your life. So give us a like, a share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much.